In 2014, I came across a book called The Political and Social Thoughts of Kwame Nkrumah. Now, this book was written by a Ghanaian who was born in the United Kingdom, and that Ghanaian is currently a professor in the United Kingdom. She is called Amabaine. As I said, the book is called The Political and Social Thoughts of Kwame Nkrumah. Now, this book is remarkable. I consider it one of the best books that have ever been written about the person of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Now, what Amabaine said about Kwame Nkrumah is that for her, when she encountered Nkrumah's name whenever it was spoken, she found him to be a polarizing figure, someone who was larger than life. So she picked interest, even at her age, to see that she finds out who was really Nkrumah. Even though she was born in Britain, she traveled all the way to the United States, traveled back to Ghana, and she went ahead to do research, extensive research, which was some form of thesis. It was a thesis about Nkrumah. So she turned the thesis, which she did, into a book later on. Now, why am I saying this? Today is Founders Day in Ghana, okay? A few hours ago, which was yesterday, a few hours ago yesterday, the president of Ghana released a speech which congratulates the Founders Day. So the Founders Day was instituted in Ghana to commemorate the founding of Ghana as a modern state. Now, there is events which surrounded the formation of Ghana as a modern state, with, of course, the leadership of Nkrumah. Nkrumah was at the helm. And I will not go very deep into history, but there was people who played a role just like in other revolutions which happened across the world. When you go to the Chinese Revolution, for example, 1949, Mao led, but there was other people who had started this revolution. But even today, we look at Mao Zedong as the father of modern China. Now, when we come to Ghana, there is a debate that is going on. Even it continues to take Twitter by storm. So when the president gave his speech, the president of Ghana, the current president of Ghana, Nana Akuffo Addo, he made some remarks. And those remarks, I want to take an opportunity to play them. And those remarks have lit a storm on Twitter. And it is a storm which he started when he came to power as a president in 2017. When he started arguing who was the founder of Ghana. He insists that Nkrumah is not the only founder of Ghana. But of course, we will not speak for him. I will not speak for him. Let me play for you so you can hear his words. But later on, we will listen to the voices of other people. Some are historians, some are elders who have studied the history of the country. Some are just commentators, of course. And later on, as we finish this broadcast, I'll come with my own thoughts, and comment about Akuffo Addo himself. And of course, his legacy. Is he putting his legacy at stake at this point? With the way he's handling himself and handling, of course, the country. Does he even have a legacy as President Akuffo Addo, if we ask today? So please enjoy the video, and then I'll later on show you some of the comments of other people who have commented on his remarks of rejecting Kwame Nkrumah as the founder of Ghana.
I speak to you this evening rejecting completely the notion that Ghana was founded by one man. Whilst Kwame Nkrumah's contributions to our independence are undeniable and unassailable, it is important to acknowledge for our self-respect that the struggle for our nation's freedom was a collective effort spanning several generations. The formation of the Aborigines Rights Protection Society, the British West African National Congress, jointly sponsored by Joseph Casely Hayford and Thomas Hatton Mills, the United Gold Coast Convention, the work of countless unsung heroes, and the tenacious spirit of our people all played vital parts in bringing us to freedom and independence. Kwame Nkrumah, with his charismatic visionary leadership, was undoubtedly a major actor in the final lap of our journey to independence. And that is why, despite the several unfortunate things that happened after independence under his watch, Parliament in 2019 decided to memorialize his date of birth as Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Day, the only Ghanaian so far to be so honored in our history.
So we have seen those remarks. Of course, what we want to see next, we want to see the various commentators. Of course, we have some, prominent historians in Ghana, and of course, we will see some members of parliament. We're going to see the comments of one of the members of parliament, and we will see also Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's son himself, what he speaks about this. And of course, even reasonable people, just reasonable people, people who have good reasoning, commentators, normal commentators, what they say about President Akuffo Addo's remarks. All right, so let's get into it. Let's get into this situation. So it is on Twitter. As you are seeing, Akuffo Addo is over here. Is even trending on Twitter if you look at it here. Let me zoom in it a little bit. As you are seeing, I'm on Twitter currently. So he is even trending. And the reason President Akuffo Addo is trending is because of these because of these remarks which he made. Now, so there is Professor Nee Thompson. He's a prominent, economist in Ghana. Actually, he wrote the 40-year development plan in Ghana. So he said in his comment that, Mr. President, there was no such thing as British West African National Congress. Besides, only a party, not a nation, was founded on August 1947. Nkrumah founded a party on June 1949 and founded a nation on 6th March 1957. Dankwa has no comparable record. Fact. So there is, of course, there is this argument. There's this argument whereby there's people who belong to President Nana Addo's political party, which is the NPP, okay, New Patriotic Party. Now, he believes that they were also part of the founders of Ghana, all right, because they played a role in bringing Nkrumah to Ghana, bringing back Nkrumah to Ghana, that the struggle had already started. Now, Nkrumah would break away from them, from that particular party they were in. Why? Nkrumah had his reasons for breaking away from them, because they were not serious, actually, according to what he says in Nkrumah himself, that they wanted instead to retain the power themselves. They didn't want the power to go to the people, and they wanted to delay independence. And even the records are there. When some of them approached the Queen, as Nkrumah was pushing for independence, some of them approached the Queen and said that the Queen should delay the independence. And Nkrumah was saying independence now. But anyway, let us listen to one more commentator and see. He's one of the major, at least political analysts in the country. So let us listen to him also.
That Ghana has only one founder. The intrigues and machinations of reactionary elements who want to uphold the colonial principles as guiding principles for Ghana cannot change the fact that Kwame Nkrumah is the only founder of Ghana. Now, when we celebrate Founders Day, when we celebrate that.
Anyway, that is one of the commentators, one of the prominent commentators in Ghana. Let me look for more. Let me look for more. Let me look for more. A little bit more, and see some of the comments that have been put up out there. Let me see.
And to the development of Ghana and Africa is not new. After the 1966 coup, intellectuals, including vice chancellors in our universities and so on, gathered books written by Nkrumah and about Nkrumah and burned them in bonfires. They thought about burning Nkrumah's books and books about him, they would manage to retreat Nkrumah completely from our history. They failed.
Okay, so okay, from there we will go to, I think there's a document actually which we are gonna see. I think someone took this from a book and highlighted out actually some part. I think it is from Nkrumah's book himself, which he wrote, Ghana, an autobiography. It is a book which Nkrumah himself wrote. There's a page which this guy picked out, and this page, let me read what the page is saying. Nkrumah is saying that I challenged our political opponents to join us in our campaign, to join us in a campaign of positive action in order to achieve self-government now. I invited Dankwa, Lampte, and the executive of the United Gold Coast Convention. Okay? Now, let's go to the next highlight. The sincerity of our political opponents and their connivance with the colonial government may be judged by the fact that not one of them answered the challenge. He invited them and they never answered the challenge. But before long, however, the members of the unofficial opposition decided to amalgamate and to form a single party, the National Liberation Movement. The reader will note the close analogy in the name of the National Liberation Movement and the NLC, both of which had about a little to do with liberation as it is possible to imagine. So these are Nkrumah's words himself. And of course, just to give some light, what is happening is that Dankwa, there is a gentleman called Dankwa and Lampte, and of course there's another one called Busia. These gentlemen, at first, when Nkrumah had arrived in Ghana, belonged to the same political party as Ghana, which was the United Gold Coast Convention. They are the ones who invited Nkrumah into the country. But Nkrumah's approach and their approach differed. Nkrumah saw their approach as bourgeoisie because they were businessmen, all right, and lawyers. So he perceived them as people who wanted to rather take on the duty of colonizing the people, contrary to what he wanted to see Nkrumah in the country himself. He perceived them as people who wanted to instead colonize the people, to take the position of the colonialists in the country. And yet Nkrumah wanted to build a country where everyone is invited. All the people are invited on the table. One man, one vote. And even when you listen to people like Dankwa never wanted to consult the general public. And these are the people, of course, these are the people who President Nana Addo right now is trying to put on the same pedestal with Nkrumah. Now, Nkrumah broke away from them because he saw their goals were different from what really independence should look like. Okay, so they were saying that independence in the most possible near period, independence in the most possible near period, or independence as soon as possible. Nkrumah said that independence now. Nkrumah said independence now. And so he started even organizing demonstrations, what he called positive action. So this is what Nkrumah is saying, that he invited them to positive action, to demonstrate. He invited Dankwa and Lamptey. They refused to come to be part of him. And actually, even when they arrested them, all of them pointed to Nkrumah that he was the trouble causer, because it reached a time when they arrested them, because they knew that they were already organizers. So all of them denied, and they pointed to Nkrumah, that Nkrumah was the trouble causer. So that is how Nkrumah broke away from their party, which was the United Gold Coast Convention, and formed his own party, the CPP, in which they started using the slogan. They mobilized the masses, and then they started using the slogan that independence now. They were talking about independence now. And the United Gold Coast Convention was talking about, independence as soon as possible. Okay? Nkrumah was talking about now. Now, this is where all these problems now we see that they are coming from. That some people, of course, have said that President Akuffo Addo is trying to be petty in his approach. He's trying to be petty, that he's trying to be a revisionist in some way of the history of the country. All right. So let us look at one more. At least he commented. I think let's first look at one. Let us look at what one member of parliament said about Akuffo Addo's approach to this particular situation. Let us look at. Okay, so this is a member of parliament of Ghana, of course. Now, this member of parliament is saying that he's telling Akuffo Addo after his speech, which was published, that do not distort Ghana's history. Nkrumah is the founder of modern Ghana. So this is one of the members of parliament in Ghana who is called, let me get his name. Let me get his name here so that we can, get more accurate information. This is the member of parliament for Elembele, Emmanuel Amakofi Boa, has told President Nana Addo Dankwa Akuffo Addo not to distort Ghana's history, especially regarding who founded Ghana. The deputy minority leader, he is currently the deputy minority leader, stated that Dr. Kwame Nkrumah is the founder of modern Ghana. And of course, this is coming after Akuffo Addo made these comments. This is what he said. Let me read it for you very well. Akuffo Addo said that I speak to you this evening, rejecting completely the notion that Ghana was founded by one man. While Kwame Nkrumah's contributions to our independence are undeniable, it is important to acknowledge for ourselves that, respect that struggle of our nation's freedom was a collective effort spanning several generations, of course, which nobody disagrees with. But a lot of people have different ways in which they have looked at this situation, and they have looked at different nations. Even today, when you look at the United States, even though the United States, there's a lot of people who contributed to independence, but a lot of people mention, they normally mention George Washington, even though there is a lot of other people who played a huge role during the formation of the nation. They mentioned George Washington. And of course, other people have mentioned, they have mentioned South Africa. A lot of people fought, people like Sobukwe who gave their lives, people like Steve Biko, Robert Sobukwe, who was a giant, even he was more Pan-African. He was a more Pan-Africanist, than even Nelson Mandela. All these guys contributed to it. But when they go to South Africa, they say the founder of the nation is Nelson Mandela. I mentioned here China. When it comes to China, they mention, Mao Zedong, even though people like Deng Xiaoping fought along Mao Zedong, but they never said the founders of modern day China is Mao Zedong and Deng Xiaoping. So this is the argument actually people, are making. But anyway, let me share one more what, President Nkrumah's son, said. Let us look at what President Nkrumah's son said about this issue. Let me see. Do not distort history. Okay. So this is what Nkrumah's son said. Nkrumah's son, who is called Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's son, who is called Sekou Nkrumah. What he said on Akuffo Addo's Founders Day speech. Now, Sekou Toure is the son of Ghana's first president, Dr. Sekou Toure. Dr. Sekou Toure has accused President Akuffo Addo of trying to manipulate Ghana's history. This is what, of course, President Nkrumah's son has said. This is Dr. Sekou Toure. Now, let us look at what he said. This is what he said. Let me see. Sorry. Let me see here. So he said, so these comments came from, his comments came after Akuffo Addo, as part of, the comments come after President Akuffo Addo, as part of his Founders Day message on Saturday, August 2024, said that he rejects suggestions that it was Dr. Kwame Nkrumah alone who led the founding, who led Ghana's independence, of course, the country's independence, and the founding of Ghana, of course. So this is why, Sekou Nkrumah, this is Sekou Nkrumah, who is Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's son. So he said, so this is what Dr. Nkrumah's son said now. Let me highlight it for you so that you can be able to see it very well. All right. Let me increase it a little bit. All right. So this is what he said. He said that the president is still living in the emotions of the past and still unable to let go of what happened in the past. We all agree that Nkrumah led Ghana to independence. People would argue that others contributed to the struggle or others struggled with him. But the point is that he captured power. He led us to independence. So let us not take that away from him. Ghana is growing. We should be more mature in approaching these things. He, the president, is trying to manipulate our history. This is Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's son. That's what he said. So Sekou Nkrumah added that. This is what he added. So this is news, actually. These are articles which were published in Ghana today, and they are the ones I'm reading from. We all accept the contribution. This is what Sekou added. We all accept the contribution that others made. And actually, they even invited him to become the General Secretary of the United Gold Coast Convention, which was a party, which I mentioned already. But at the same time, we don't need to be petty. I think we should all rise above that and try to understand our history. And the history, is for all of us as Ghanaians. So these were, he was making actually comments on a TV station, which is called TV3. They called him for him to make, a comment on President Akuffo Addo's, allegations that, that Nkrumah is not the only founder of Ghana. There's a lady actually who spoke very well. There's a lady who spoke very well on Twitter. Is a very calm lady, made some really remarkable comments regarding this situation. And I would like us, also to look at those comments which the lady made. Very, very good comments, which are extremely, extremely, reasonable. There's a lady, simply made reasonable comments, regarding this particular issue. Let me share those comments which she made.
Someone should pick a phone right now, go on to Google. Someone should pick a phone right now, go on to Google and search for Kumiprekon demonstration. If not today, I didn't know there were more than 10 key members that led the Kumiprekon demonstration. But anytime you mention Kumiprekon demonstration, Nana Akuffo Addo name comes up. That demonstration is considered to be one of the biggest ever organized in Ghana with over 100,000 people. Kwesi Pratt, Reku Brobe and Co were leading members of that demonstration. But anytime that demonstration is mentioned, they credit it to Nana Akuffo Addo, and he brags about it. I believe it's even in his CV. Is Nana Akuffo Addo a last born? Those of you who know him, is he a last born? That man is too petty. You have fought this issue of what? Kwame Nkrumah since you became president in 2016. To the extent that you even had to erase the 2 cedis note from circulation. I believe it was this hatred for Kwame Nkrumah that made you to take away that note. And you are trying so hard to take away what belongs to the man. You are fighting a ghost. Why are you fighting Nkrumah, Mr. President? Today, as I said, Kumiprekon, when they mention you and Kumiprekon are synonymous, and you take those accolades. Why are you taking accolades for? You didn't even organize that program. I heard you were made to speak that day. But some of the pictures you are in the lead together with other prominent people in Ghana, but all credits were given to you. Why haven't you rejected those credits? You have enjoyed it over the years. You don't want Kwame Nkrumah to enjoy. We all learned about what happened prior to independence and the role each people played. Please, you can't rewrite history, Mr. President. We don't care whether you're a last born or not. From and fire home. Look at the hate with which you were talking. You are addressing Ghana on Founders Day or concerning Founders Day. And instead of you to eulogize Kwame Nkrumah, you are there saying, I reject completely. You can't even hide your feelings, Kakrampo, Mr. President. You can't hide your feelings. And then, it's too much. Go back to apartheid. For how many years did South Africans fight apartheid? Nelson Mandela was not the only person that led apartheid. Nelson Mandela was in prison for over 20 years, and still the apartheid was going on. The fight for freedom continued. So many people died. But at the end of the day, when you mention apartheid, it is Nelson Mandela that comes out. And Nelson Mandela, if he's alive today, would never say that it was his sole effort that won them independence or won the fight against apartheid. Why are you doing this? If you want, change everything. You have some few months to leave office. When you leave, we'll change it back. Nkrumah deserves what he deserves. Pray that we don't erase you as a president of Ghana. Untimi nye wanyɛ hwee nea obi ayɛ no wopɛ sɛ wogye firi ne nsam. The hate is too much and it's so obvious. Mungyae saa, Mr. Petty President. Good afternoon.
Yeah, so those are these are the of course people's comments on the situations. These are their thoughts regarding what definitely happened. There's one more person actually I want to bring. There's a gentleman who served in the military during Nkrumah's period. There's he served as a military personnel. He was one of the soldiers during Nkrumah's presidency. He's an old man currently. I don't know whether he's even still living. So he made also some comments regarding Nkrumah of course, his contribution, he was not specifically talking about the founding of the country, but rather he was speaking about, Nkrumah's contribution. He's an old man, and how, of course, he's talking about the, Akuffo Addo's party. We know that President Akuffo Addo's party, he's very hostile towards Nkrumah. That when he came, of course, to power, he started trying to manipulate Ghana's history, as some people are saying. But this gentleman comes on to clear the air and says that these people wanted to hate Nkrumah. They made us hate Nkrumah, but for no reason, just because of that grudge. And the fact that they brought Nkrumah to Ghana to help them to capture power, but Nkrumah separated from them because he saw their intentions were not really to fight for independence, but rather to replace the colonialists. That was, what he saw. So let me share him once again so that we can see that gentleman, that old, gentleman, and what he's saying about Ghana.
My name is Major Gordon Amenya. My name is Major Gordon Amenya, retired. And when Nkrumah came and commissioned us at Military Academy, and we went for social gathering, we heard that somebody was knocking the table, pang, 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 pang. Then the room became quiet. And then he gave a short speech. And what I gathered from that speech was that I have commissioned you, these officers, to defend Ghana and defend me, Nkrumah. If you fail to defend me, Ghana will suffer in future. And it's true. Today we are suffering. That speech in 1963 has come true. The opponent wished they had led the independence, but they couldn't do it. So they developed sheer deep hatred to destroy everything that Nkrumah did. And they are still destroying. They want to wipe up Nkrumah's name, but they can't do it because we are alive and we shall train our children and children's children and generations.
Yeah, so that is interesting. So this broadcast actually was supposed to be short, but it's very important. Now, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah is really someone very dear to my heart. Myself is someone who inspired me. When I came to learn about him and how much contribution, of course, he made for Ghana and the African continent, mostly for me, what intrigued me is the contribution, of course, that he made towards the African continent. When I came to read some of his speeches from a book, there's a book which was compiled called the Selected Speeches of Kwame Nkrumah. Let me see if I can get that book so that I can show you the picture. Selected Speeches of Kwame Nkrumah. All right. So in that book, in that particular book, let me see, open. All right. So in that particular book, open image in new tab. Okay. So I got the book, right? I got the book. So in that particular book, Nkrumah's speeches, when you read them, whether he was speaking to children, whether he was speaking to women, regardless of who he was speaking to, Nkrumah was constantly speaking about the African continent. So when you listen to Nkrumah, he definitely inspires you as a person. This is the book. It was written by a gentleman called Samuel Obeng. He compiled the speeches, actually, Nkrumah's speeches. Now, Nkrumah appeared to me like someone who's larger than life because of his vision that he always spoke about the African continent. He always spoke about how important it was for the unification, of the continent, and the fact that we should rebuild it. And when you read Nkrumah's speech, which he gave in 1963 in Addis Ababa, actually, it is instrumental. That speech is one of the most powerful speeches that have ever been given by an African. And I think that it is Professor Pierre Lumumba, who has mentioned that that Nkrumah is one of the greatest Africans to ever live. Actually, it is not even him alone who said. In 2000, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah was voted as the African of the millennium. All right, the African of the millennium by BBC, BBC listeners of African descent, and Africans, of course, together. And of course, he was competing with even Nelson Mandela. But mind you, Nelson Mandela was still alive. All right, and Nkrumah came on top. Nkrumah died in 1972. Remember, but Nkrumah's impact across the continent, still looms large. And even when we are writing the history of the African continent, a united continent, when we unify it into a single government, I think Nkrumah's name and of course Marcus Garvey and others will continue to loom large on the African continent. So what I think about President Akuffo Addo's comments, personally, I think that President Akuffo Addo is doing himself a disservice, by attacking Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's legacy, in Ghana, because Nkrumah has already transcended Ghana as a country. So regardless of how many people hate Nkrumah in Ghana, especially, coming from President Akuffo Addo's, political party, it is unlikely that they will cause anything when it comes to Nkrumah. It's unlikely that they will cause any scratch on Nkrumah's name, because Nkrumah's name has already transcended not only Ghana, but even the African continent. He has transcended it. Okay, remember, the person who inspired Malcolm X to create the Organization of Afro-American Unity, it was Nkrumah. Okay, Malcolm X's outlook when he went back to the United States after visiting Africa and speaking at the OAU, it was influenced majorly by Nkrumah. And even when you listen to Malcolm X, you can hear him saying that there's no man he respected so much on the African continent as Nkrumah. Now, Nkrumah, the same man, influenced Dr. Martin Luther King. Okay, Dr. Martin Luther King. Okay, so Nkrumah influenced Dr. Martin Luther King in that when Dr. Martin Luther King left Ghana in 1957, after independence, because Dr. Martin Luther King attended independence in Ghana in 1957 in March, when Ghana received its independence. When Dr. Martin Luther King went back to the United States, he gave a speech which is called The Birth of a New Nation. And that speech actually was inspired by Nkrumah's activities and what Nkrumah was doing. It was inspired by Ghana's independence and the way Dr. Kwame Nkrumah led Ghana to independence, and of course gave it a name. Let us listen to also what Dr. King said, Dr. Martin Luther King said about Kwame Nkrumah. So Dr. Martin Luther King said about Nkrumah, when the United States media, all these New York Times which we see, they were criticizing Nkrumah. Dr. King said about Nkrumah that this is a man, he doesn't understand. Dr. King said he doesn't understand why the Americans are demonizing Nkrumah and why the American media is demonizing Kwame Nkrumah. So he said that Nkrumah is a man with a tender heart. Okay? Is a man with a tender heart. Okay? And with a very strong spirit. You see? So Dr. King himself respected Nkrumah. Now, when we come to the Black Panthers themselves, let us look at the Black Panthers. When we look at the Black Panthers, if you have watched this movie on the Black Panthers, which was done on the Black Panthers, I think what is that movie called? You can see that the Black Panthers themselves were using Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's book called The Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare. Okay, on the conduct, how revolutionaries are supposed to conduct themselves. For example, do not rape women, do not take liberties with women, do not take, mistreat, citizens in the country, because, all these things. But they were taking from Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's book. They were using actually Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's book also. In addition, of course, to the Red Book, which was written by, Mao Zedong. So for Akuffo Addo to come and attack such a person. So all these are, why am I saying it? I'm saying it to show you how Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's name has transcended Ghana and even has transcended Africa. And it is very difficult for you even to do anything, and to bring him down, to reduce his name. It is very difficult to reduce Nkrumah's name, okay, because he's so respected, not only in Ghana, but across, across the world, across the African continent. I've met some Ghanaians who respect Nkrumah, and actually they have said that, they do not understand why other Ghanaians do not like Nkrumah. Okay, because Nkrumah is loved very widely when you go to other parts of the continent. He's respected. Streets are named after him. When you go to Cuba, when you go everywhere, when you go to Uganda, there's streets there. There's Nkrumah Street. When you go over there, when you go to Zambia, universities, when you go to Tanzania, all over, even in Kenya, things are named after Nkrumah. Okay, so I think that President Nana Addo is doing himself a disservice. This is my observation. He is doing, in attacking Nkrumah's legacy and not respecting him, he's doing himself a disservice. And how is he doing himself a disservice? President Nana Akuffo Addo, he's violating. There's a law which they said in the laws of power. All right, in the laws of power, there's a book which was written by, is called Robert Greene, the 48 Laws of Power. All right, Nkrumah is, Akuffo Addo is disrespecting the rule number 1 in that book, the 48 Laws of Power, that never disrespect your master. Never disrespect your master. And at this point, Nkrumah's figure is larger, is almost larger than life. And at least the people who have met him, who have encountered his name, this is what they attest to. So I think that it would have been better for President Akuffo Addo to humble himself, not even talk about the man, leave the man alone, and don't even talk about him. He would have been able to reserve his own legacy as President Nana Addo. But where he has gone, the figure he has gone up against is even a person who went long time ago to rest, 1972. 1972, that is when Dr. Kwame Nkrumah went to rest. And now he has disciples all over. He has thousands and millions of disciples who are now fighting for him, like us, who even were not born when Nkrumah died. We were not born when Nkrumah, by the time Nkrumah died in 1972. But he was able to influence us. He was able to influence people like me. He was able to influence other young people just by them reading his books. He speaks through his books. Nkrumah speaks to you when you read his books. He speaks to you like a person, almost like somebody is standing there. And he urges you to take action towards making the continent better. And that's what has inspired most of our works and what we are doing. So to come up against such a figure, I think that President Akuffo Addo is doing himself a disservice, and he's doing his legacy a service. It is going to destroy his legacy if he has any left in Ghana. But what do you think? What do you think yourself? So put your comments in the section. This is a subject that we really need to discuss. We really need to discuss this, especially as Africans, and of course, Ghanaians also. You need to lead, of course, this process. Discuss it in the comment section. Put your comments, put your suggestions in the comment section. What do you think about President Akuffo Addo's approach towards the Founders Day and the revisionist, being a revisionist? So because a lot of people have said that President Akuffo Addo is becoming a revisionist, is a revisionist of Ghana's history. And of course, probably he may want to revise Africa's history too. So, but what do you think? What do you think? Let us talk about this. So put your suggestions. Let this discussion continue on in the comment section. Thank you so much for being part of this broadcast. We love you all. This is Connect Africa. Share the video with all the other people. This is a very important video. Actually, this information should go out there because President Akuffo Addo, of course, presented himself in the past as a Pan-Africanist. So if you're a Pan-Africanist, then definitely we expect you to be on the side of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. But he looks like he's not on that part. Now, share this video with others. Share it and let it go as far as it can, even in Ghana itself, so that the discussion can continue on, even all across the African continent and in the diaspora. Share it all over in the diaspora. Share it with other people. Like the video. Do not leave before you have liked the video, please. please, please, please do not leave before you have liked the video. Like the video and share it with others. And if you have not subscribed to the channel, Connect Africa, please subscribe to the channel and support the channel. Thank you so much for the support that you have given the channel. And thank you for hanging out with me. Peace unto you. Thank you so much.